Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Managing the Stress of Working from Home webinar with me, Gary Gaz Morgan. For those of you that may not know, I coach business leaders and individuals to really find their purpose in life and in their business, which often results in one of two things. If it's their business, then it normally results in their business growth. If it's their personal life that I'm coaching them with, then it normally results in personal growth. So that's kind of me, really. I just want to say that if you have any questions throughout the webinar today, then please, by all means, put them into the chat box, or if you have any comments, please put them into the chat box as well. And really, I guess without further ado, let's really get into helping you and you being able to help your teams to manage the stress of working from home. So as we know, there's been this pandemic in the last kind of 10 months, and many people, yourselves included, I'm sure, and myself included, have had to make the shift from working from an office or an office based into working from home. And it's been for an extended period of time now, and many people are finding that really tough. And there's many reasons why they're finding working from home tough. It's even tougher if you're somebody, I guess, or it's as tough, even if you're somebody that's leading teams as well as just yourself coping with the stress of working from home. So during this webinar, what I will be doing is I'm going to be sharing with you just some ways in which you can manage your own stress, but also how you can support and manage your teams in terms of their stress as well, if you are a team manager or an owner of a business, etc. So let's get straight into the presentation that I've got prepared for you then. So what I'm going to do is I will now share my screen with you. Hopefully you can all see that. Managing the stress of working from home. So that's really, really good. So first thing I want to really just go through with you is this point here. It comes from a lady, an inspirational lady called Eleanor Brown. And what she says is, she says, you can't pour from an empty vessel. You can't pour from an empty vessel. And what that really means is, for me anyway, what it means is, if you are struggling yourself, how are you going to be able to help other people? So whether you're a coach, whether you're a business manager, whether you are a business leader, whatever you are, or whoever you are, if you aren't looking after yourself first and foremost, if you're feeling empty, if you're feeling incredibly stressed, it is nigh on impossible to go and help other people. Because as she says, you cannot pour from an empty vessel. So that's just the first thing I really want you to take away from this webinar today, is that you can't pour from an empty vessel. Therefore, you need to make sure that you're doing things that constantly are keeping your vessel topped up. Because most of us on a daily basis are pouring from our vessel. We are giving to others, supporting others, etc. So we really need to focus on that. What I now want to do, though, is really introduce to you something called the stress bucket. Now, just imagine that your life, in your stress, is a bucket. And in that bucket, there's a measurable amount of water. In fact, let me just put my cursor. Hopefully you can see my cursor on the screen there. And what you can see is maybe that first line there, that first line is what I call manageable stress. You know, because if you look at that, if a literal bucket, if you had water up to that point, you've got an awful long way still to go before your bucket starts overflowing, haven't you? So really, this is what we call manageable stress. Excuse me. And do you know what? We all have a manageable amount of stress in there. We all have stress in our lives. And sometimes that stress is good stress, because certain stress can actually move us and motivate us to perform our role, our tasks even better. So that's a good thing. That's manageable stress. The problem occurs when we start going up these lines, line 2, 3, 4, and then we start getting that overflowing. And that's not good. So let's just think about some of the things that might make our bucket overflow. What are the things that are causing stress? Well, I've collated over the last 10 months of working with my coaching clients. I've got quite a long list. I've put some of them up here, but I've got quite a long list of all the things that they've said to me that they find stressful. And I put some up here, and I want to talk through some of those with you today. So the first thing is loneliness. Loneliness. There's an incredible amount of people who, because of the situation we're currently in, that they're feeling incredibly lonely. They don't see their friends and family in the same way as they used to. And that for them, even though they might be seeing them on FaceTime or on different Zoom platforms or video conferencing platforms, they still find that the fact that they're not getting a lot of human connection, really, they find that world incredibly lonely, especially if they're self-isolating, or especially for those who are having to shield. Some of my clients and their families, unfortunately, have been really poorly, and they're therefore having to shield from other people, which creates another level of loneliness during their kind of suffering, if you like. So that can be incredibly stressful. The next one that I'm just going to share with you is furlough. So maybe you yourself may have been furloughed, or maybe if you're a business leader, you may have had to furlough your staff. And some of my clients who have been furloughing some of their team, they've actually got me to spend some time coaching those individuals. And I found it incredibly fascinating, actually, working with those individuals, because although they're getting, as it was, 80% of their salary and they don't have to work, you might think, well, that sounds really good. But actually, what I've realized with the whole furlough thing is it really is affecting people's self-esteem. For example, they're often saying to me, people that have been furloughed, they often say things to me such as, why me? Why have I been furloughed and not somebody else in my department? Is it because I'm not very good at my job? Am I going to end up, never coming back? Or will I end up being surplus to requirements? Because I feel kind of rubbish right now. So it really does have a big impact on people in a negative way, very often, in a stressful way. So furlough is something that can affect people's self-esteem, their self-worth. Some of them have even said to me, Gaz, I actually thought in my role, I was pretty indispensable. I thought I had created a job where nobody could do it as well as me for any length of time. And how wrong have they been proven? So we need to think about that. The next one is redundancy and loss of business. So some people throughout this pandemic, they've been made redundant. And again, probably similar feelings to those of the furlough, but at a deeper level, because it is final for them. They know that they have been made redundant and they've now got to try and find alternative employment during a time where it's really challenging in some of their industries. For example, hospitality, travel, those industries have been massively hit during this period of time. And there's lots of people that have been made redundant during this time with those sectors or those industries. And with that in mind, that means there's a lot of people all looking for the same type of jobs. So redundancy can be a cause of your bucket overflowing. This is all the rubbish, the water that's coming into that bucket now. And it's starting slowly and slowly now. Each one of these things starts making the bucket rise, the water in the bucket rise. It could be a loss of business. So some people have lost their businesses during this time, or they've had to shelve their businesses and go and take alternate employment. So there's many reasons why this bucket is flowing in. The other one is finance. You can appreciate that during this time, you know, money is, for some people, is really hard to come by, and they're finding it incredibly difficult to make ends meet. We've got weight loss and weight gain. So very few, you know, a lot of people are really encouraged, and they're at home, so they're baking more, and they're almost doing the British Bake Off competitions. The problem that some of them are telling me is we have to eat that stuff as well. And the thing is, when they're eating it, of course, on a regular basis, they've realized that they actually have started putting excess weight on. Others, because they're not moving around as much, they're not doing as much, they're not as active as they normally are, they feel that they haven't got a real appetite. And with the added stress of life as well, they've lost their appetite. So they on the opposite end, they're kind of losing weight. And it's mainly to do with the stress that they feel under, and they just lost their appetite. And then, of course, we look at mental health. You know, all of these things can affect our mental health and well-being. And then for those of you that are parents right now, not only is it challenging that you are having to work from home yourselves, but you've also got the added stress of homeschooling. And there's many, many, many of my clients who are struggling so much with getting that balance between producing a good day's work for their employer or for their business, and making sure that their children are getting a good education while the schools are closed. So these are all individual things that rise in the bucket when they're coming in. They're creating more and more stress. So first of all, it's worth thinking about those things. It's worth you thinking about, actually, what are the things that are really stressing me right now? Because if you haven't got children and you're not homeschooling, well, that's not going to be a stress for you, is it, realistically? But there's many other things on this list that I've shared with you that may well be relevant to you. So think about them. What are the things that are really causing you the most stress? You know, when I talk about stress, it's that feeling of pressure and almost a tightness of the heart area, really, a tension within our bodies. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about stress. And of course, if the stress isn't managed, then there are other signs and there are other effects that then come from stress, physical effects, mental effects. And it may well mean that you or others that you love and know may need to seek some medical attention. So really worthwhile thinking about what is causing you the most stress right now. Now, sticking with our bucket analogy then, let's just think about these holes. As you may have noticed, there's a few holes in this bucket. And again, if this was a literal bucket with water, if the water was coming in, but we had holes in there, then it's going to manage the amount of water that's going to end up in that bucket. And that really is the way to manage your stress, is to make sure you've got some holes in your metaphorical bucket, so to speak. So what are some of the holes? You know, you can see the holes here. They're at different levels at different times. They're all the same size on this particular bucket, but I just want to let you know that actually you can make these holes as big or as small as you wish. Of course, the bigger the holes, the less water that's going to come in. So the bigger you can make your managing stress activities, the less likely you are to get your bucket overflowing and you starting to feel overwhelmed. So let's just talk through some of the things then that really kind of get rid of that stress for you. What are they? Well, again, sharing with my clients, some of the things that have come up are reading. People find that reading just really relaxes them. They get lost within a book. Cooking. You know, I think a lot of people have taken, as I mentioned earlier on, to baking and cooking different things, and cooking from scratch is a is a phenomenon that seems to be coming up right now, which, you know, if you enjoy cooking and you can kind of engross yourself within that, that's a great way to kind of relieve your stress. Other people are kind of going out for walks or maybe other forms of exercise, whatever that may mean for you. Some people like to go running, some go cycling. You know, whatever it is for you, whatever means you have of exercising, make sure you're doing that, even if it's just going for a short walk 2-3 times a day. Speaking to your friends and family, you know, there's nothing better than to have that, as hard as it is not to see them, but make sure that you're speaking to them on a regular basis, because that's going to help your stress levels. At least you know they're okay. You can hear them, whether it's your parents, whether it's your brothers or sisters or children or whoever it is. Make sure you speak to them on a regular basis. And then we have meditation or mindfulness or prayer, whichever is your preference. Basically, it's taking some time where you can just switch off from all the noise of the world, however you wish to do that. Some people call it meditation and they focus on meditating. Others talk about it being mindfulness and just doing things in a mindful way. And in a mindful way is kind of in a purposeful way. Being in the present is a key thing in managing your stress. You know, it's so easy that we can focus on what's going to happen in the future. And the future is uncertain. And uncertainty often creates more stress and anxiety. So wherever possible, stay in the present moment. Yes, tomorrow will have its worries, but it will also have its excitement as well. But just stay in the moment. Don't be thinking too far ahead. And if you do, try to bring yourself back to where you are now. So if your mind is already kind of drifting off to different things during this webinar, bring it back to here right now. Hear my voice. Calm yourself down. Be in the present moment. Just absorb yourself in listening to what I'm saying to you. And for those that may be religious or spiritually minded, they often use prayer as their way to ground themselves, to cope with their stress and anxiety. Another way is gratitude. And this is one that I absolutely love, this part of really as a stress reliever, if you like. I think we have so much to be grateful for. And because of the way the world is sometimes, we just forget that just how many things we're grateful for. So here's something I would love you to do as a result of this kind of webinar today. At some point today, whether you do it straight away after the webinar or maybe this evening before you go to bed, just take a pen and a piece of paper and just write down 3 things that you are grateful for as a result of what's happened to you today. 3 things. I love to do this at the beginning of the morning. I do it as part of my morning routine. So I tend to, in my journal, I like to journal every morning. And I always write down 3 things I am grateful for. Those are the first 3 things I write into my journal every single day. And I don't mind sharing with you. My first one, normally, unless it's one of my loved ones' birthdays or it's Christmas or it's a loved one's anniversary of their passing, normally the first thing that I will write down is, I am grateful that I have opened my eyes and I'm alive to live another day. That's normally my number one most days. And then the other ones can be anything. You could be grateful for the fact that you've got food and drink in the house. And not only have you got food and drink, hopefully you've got an abundance of food and drink within your homes. We've had some really cold weather recently. Are you grateful that the fact that you're living in a home that has heating and you're sleeping in a warm, comfy bed at night. Because others, there are some that won't have had that opportunity, if you like. So there's many things. You can be grateful for the wind. You can be grateful for the rain, for the sunshine, for the snow, for the seasons. You can be thankful for all the different animals that are out there. You can be thankful. We all can be thankful for so many things. If only we stop and just take a moment to realize that, yes, there are things in our lives that are really difficult right now, but there are also things that we can be truly, truly grateful for. Have you got loved ones around you right now? If you have, be grateful for that, because some haven't. So gratitude is massive. The next thing is journaling. And I mentioned that I journal every morning as part of my morning routine. I love to journal, write down my thoughts. I normally do it retrospectively. So I wrote this morning about my day yesterday. Tomorrow I will write about today. That's how I do it. But you find your own way. And some of these things you might really kind of engross yourself in and throw yourself into them. Some of them you might give a try and think, no, that's not really for me. That's okay. That's okay. And some of the other things we've got there, we've got quizzes, which some people love, some people don't like, but they're an opportunity for you to kind of switch off from what's going on in your head. And I think routine and having a plan is important as well. Having a time management plan. What I've actually done is I've got this magic whiteboard and I've put it up on my walls. And what I've then done is I've got the days of the week, I've got to do now and to do later. And at the bottom, I've got the things that I've done. And I use Post-it notes and I set it up for the week ahead of me. And as things come up, I put them on the relevant parts of the board. But the thing that it really helps me with, especially when we're not going out and about as much as we used to, it really helps me to realize just how much I've achieved this week. Because at the end of the week, in my done section, there are always all of these Post-it notes. And that's a great feeling for me. And I'm sure it will be for you as well. I have clients that I've introduced this same method with, and they love it. And they're saying the same thing to me, that actually having that done bit is the biggest part, because you realize just how productive you have been during the week. So try to get yourself into the habit of planning. Yes, there's uncertainty in terms of when the lockdown might be lifted. What's the world going to be like? Yes, there's all of that. But there are still things that are within your control that you can plan for on a daily, weekly basis. So please take the time to do those. So that is the stress bucket analogy. Really think about that as you go through the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. Just some key learning points really from what I've shared with you. First of all, stress buckets come in different shapes and sizes. Just because you find it a particular situation quite easy to deal with, it can be easy to think, well, if you've got a team member or a family member that's struggling with the same situation, you can be kind of frustrated thinking, well, why am I all right with it and they're not? And vice versa. Well, really, stress comes in different ways and it affects people in different ways as well. And stress buckets come in different shapes and sizes. It's also important to really know what makes your bucket spill over. And finally, the third key point, it's even more important actually, to make sure not only do you create those holes in your bucket, but you also stop those holes from blocking up. And the more stress you're feeling, make your holes even bigger. In other words, do more. Action creates movement, emotion, and it helps clear this. So think about that. Motion creates emotion. In terms of supporting and empowering others within your life, whether they are your relatives, your loved ones, Or if you're a manager or a business leader, then it could be your team that you're needing to support and empower. Well, how do you do that? Well, if it's your team, the most important thing is share the stress bucket analogy with them. Share it with them the way I've shared it with you today. Secondly, make sure that you have regular wellness check meetings. That is a discussion with you, a confidential discussion with yourself, where you're just checking in with them. How are they feeling? Not about how much work they've done, they haven't done, but about them, the human being that they are. Check in with them and have regular meetings with them. And then finally, create an environment. If you're a team leader, a business manager, a director of a business, if you're a business leader, if you're leading people, you have an opportunity to create an environment where it's okay not to be okay. And that's what I would encourage you to do. People will suffer in silence. Your team members will suffer in silence if you don't create that environment where it's okay to not be okay. So those are just some of the ways in which you can help yourself, but also that you'll be able to help other people during this period. And of course, before I go, it's just to obviously thank each and every one of you for all that you do for yourselves, for your families, for your loved ones, for your business partners and your business leaders and your clients. Think about really creating that environment where everybody looks out for everybody. Just leaves me to just say thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, if you'd like to get in touch, then please email. You can send me an email there to gary@garymorgan.co, or you can drop me or give me a call on my telephone number there, 020-8337-5937. Once again, I thank you all so much for listening. And as always, it's been a pleasure.